Hey everybody, Todd Dills here, and off the top of the Overdrive Radio podcast this week, here's a big congrats in order for our 4 Small Fleet Championship finalists. We just announced them on Friday, October the 3rd, and you've heard from one of them here already in recent weeks. That'd be Robbie and Levi Turnage of Turnage & Sons, LLC, out of Tylertown, Mississippi, competing at 29 trucks today in the 11 to 30 truck category. With them there is the Thomasville Furniture Express small fleet out of Thomasville, North Carolina, helmed by owners Scott Denmark and Scott Kruthis. Then, in the 3 to 10 truck category are Clifford Hay Incorporated out of Cobleskill, New York, and Clifford's also a past winner in our Pride and Polish virtual truck show with some spectacular iron there for certain. Along with Hay's 6-truck outfit is the Oberman Logistics all-owner-operator fleet out of Huntington, Tennessee. Here's a huge congratulations to all of them, and for you, look forward to hearing more from all 4 small fleets and their owners after the big event of the National Association of Small Trucking Companies upcoming October 23rd through the 25th in Nashville here, where I'll get to spend some time with them, no doubt. Now, on to the main show. No news has been bigger in trucking this year than the DOT's big announcement Friday, September 26, of changes to the rules around non-domiciled CDL issuance, which holds potential to put big limits on foreign domiciled CDL drivers in the United States that just weren't there since non-domiciled CDL issuance was expanded to include them. The influx of asylum seekers into the U.S. in recent years has meant a lot of those asylum seekers ended up getting those non-domiciled CDLs, and they won't going forward unless they have an employer-based visa for temporary work in the United States. The same day DOT announced the changes, likewise some results from its ongoing audit of state CDL programs around non-domiciled CDL issuance, our own Matt Cole was out at the Guilty by Association truck show in Joplin, Missouri, where he reported from a sort of listening session hosted at the event by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association, and featuring questions and commentary from owner-operators in attendance and responses from FMCSA's own Senior Policy Advisor, Michael Hampton. Today's episode will feature a good near hour's worth of audio from that session. It's not the greatest quality audio ever. The mics folks in the room used were quite sensitive to speakers' P-pops and the like, but certainly worth a listen and airing of the issues owners most care about and that FMCSA has a role in, like the non-domiciled CDL itself, which, like so many others in Overdrive's audience, one commenter noted he felt shouldn't even exist as an option for a driver in the U.S. with temporary status from another country.
Non-domiciled CDL shouldn't even exist. We're trying to fix broken glass, by just putting another piece of glass up there. That's going to break too. We're trying to, in my opinion, to fix something that shouldn't even be there. So instead of spending all of this time trying to fix something that shouldn't be there, maybe it just shouldn't be there.
Applause wasn't hard to come by, even in response to FMCSA's Michael Hampton's own commentary on issues of major importance to owner-operators. For instance, here's Hampton noting what he feels regulators are likely to find as a result of enhanced hours of service flexibility aimed at giving owner-ops and truckers of all stripes better options to rest.
What I believe is that if you give truckers flexibility in their schedule, that is going to make a safer, more well-rested trucker.
In terms of applause, that right there might be the number one biggest eruption of the entire talk as the agency readies those 2 flexibility-enhancing studies we highlighted 2 weeks back here on the podcast. Hampton, during the session at the GBATS show, urged truckers to participate in those studies when they get rolling. The agency will need data to help it get further changes to the split sleeper rules and or a 14-hour clock pause button across the finish line in the future. Participation is going to be paramount to analyzing safety impacts and, with any luck, truly showing that Hampton and that contention is in fact correct. More on that in what follows, where we're mostly just going to let the tape roll with a few contextualizing interjections and or minimal edits to keep things concise where it made sense. We won't get all of the session here, but what we have is evidence of something fundamental, I believe, about owner-operators generally. That's a high level of engagement on issues, and now with a perhaps more willing ear at the highest levels of the DOT and FMCSA, I might wager, given the news of late. After the break, We'll dive into the beginning of Hampton's talk and his distillation of the then breaking non-domiciled CDL news. Keep tuned. Ask any driver. Winter diesel problems don't happen all at once. That's why Howe's Products offers total performance and protection. Diesel Defender cleans and prepares your system so you start off the season strong. Before cold hits, dose up with Diesel Treat to keep fuel flowing all winter long by preventing gelling in even the harshest temps. And if you do ever get stuck, Howe's Diesel Lifeline is your rescue, reliquefying gelled fuel fast. With Howe's, you don't just face winter, you beat it. Visit HOWES, HowesProducts.com for more. Remember, Hampton's talking mere minutes or at most hours after DOT Secretary Sean Duffy unveiled new rules effective immediately around states' issuance of non-domiciled CDLs. Here's Hampton setting up hopes for an open dialogue to continue the small business trucking community. When he mentions Chief Bars, he's talking about Derek Bars, President Trump's nominee for FMCSA administrator, who was ultimately confirmed just this past week. Anyhow, here's Hampton.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Hampton with FMCSA. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor. So, just want to say from the outset that we are really looking forward at FMCSA to have Chief Bars as our confirmed administrator. So, at FMCSA, we want to listen to you. We want to have an open dialogue. We may not know about some of the issues that you're facing. When I go to work every day, it's in DC in an office. When you guys are in your truck, you guys are seeing what's happening on the roads. You guys are seeing what's happening in the industry, and we need to have that open dialogue to hear from you, and so we can listen, take that feedback back, and make good policy that improves your lives and reduces that burden on you, helps the industry. And I really look forward to your questions. And I know from the President's initial executive order in April, as well as the Secretary's direction in the protractor package that was announced at the end of June, as well as the announcement this morning, I think what you've seen is a Secretary that really cares about truckers and the industry and is trying to do right by truckers. So I hope that you are feeling that for today, but I know that there's a lot more work to be done, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you all about some of the stuff we have done, your feedback on that, as well as some of the stuff we need to do moving forward.
Hi there. My name's Todd Spencer, President of OIDA. Welcome to Joplin. Welcome to the Guilty by Association Truck Show. OIDA was formed over 50 years ago now by a bunch of truckers that were frustrated with the things that were going on in their lives and determined to try to change things. My predecessors, Jim Johnson and others, trooped off to D.C., convinced that if they had a few days to spend with policymakers and lawmakers, they could get the issues worked out and get back to trucking. Well, nevertheless, what they learned was that no one in D.C. had any idea who these truckers were or who most truckers were or what they did or the challenges they faced. And while there were accomplishments made in that initial visit as a result of a shutdown, the real realization was that, hey, look, if you're going to have any meaningful impact, if you're going to be treated fairly and respected for the professionalism and the important work that you do, you need to have advocacy there 365 days a year. That's what OIDA set out to do. We spent a lot of years building credibility with the regulators, with lawmakers, to basically accurately carry the voice of small business truckers. The biggest challenge we've had through all the years is not necessarily convincing lawmakers and policymakers. It's convincing truckers that, hey guys, if we speak with one voice, there are people that really want to hear what we've got to say, and they'll work, they'll try to do the best they can on our issues. So get behind the cause. If for OIDA members here, thank you a lot. And if there's any that aren't, hey guys, we're all in this together. we move the ball forward when we're all pushing in the right direction, in the same direction. Thank you for that. Yes, we are pleased to have Mr. Hampton here today. We also have Derek Bars, who will be confirmed as the FMCSA administrator. They're interested in hearing what you all have to say. They care about what you all have to say, because whether it's us and everyone else in the industry, including the safety enforcement people, we're all in this together trying to do a better job. And we have challenges, but together we can help resolve them much better. So I want to thank these folks for being here. And hey, now it's up to you all.
And if I could, just before we start taking questions, I don't want to be someone, I don't think FMCSA wants to be someone right now that is so arrogant to think that we have all the answers, because we don't. And that's why we want to be able to listen and take that feedback and chart a path forward based on that feedback. So just want to, again, invite a good conversation. And if we don't have the answers today, we're going to take that back, look into it, and we may see action in the future. So this morning, the secretary and our chief counsel, Jesse Edelson, announced that two actions. One was an emergency and final rule. So this is not a notice of proposed rulemaking. It's effective immediately, in which will significantly restrict the number of non-domiciled CDL that are issued, and that will change. So it'll change the standards. And we're doing that for two reasons. Number one, based on the FMCSA has identified a number of crashes that were caused by non-domiciled CDL holders or those who were eligible to obtain a non-domiciled CDL but were improperly issued a standard CDL. And those were 5 pretty significant crashes. And one was most recently in the Florida crash, and I think we all know about that one, which there was a individual who did an unauthorized U-turn and ended up killing three individuals. So 3 individuals lost their lives. It was a terrible tragedy. And the video, I mean, it'll give you chills. But we identified 5 pretty significant crashes just this year. But in addition to that, so the crashes show that even when an individual is eligible to receive one of these licenses, that even when the regulations are followed to the letter, that it is not providing the appropriate safety for our roadways. So it's causing a lot of issues on our roadways, and it's really reduced the safety bar. In addition, FMCSA, under the Secretary's direction and the President's executive order, beginning in June, launched an audit into the state's issuance of non-domiciled CDLs. And what that audit has shown, to me, is chilling. So, for example, in California, approximately, based on FMCSA sample, we had investigators spend about 2 weeks there. Based on FMCSA sample, about 1 in 4 licenses were issued improperly. And some of these are in which the individual's employment authorization and the expiration date on the license. The expiration on the license extended up to 4 years beyond the employment authorization which they were allowed to work in the United States. Some were issued without verifying any documentation at all. And so 1 in 4 licenses in California, based on our sample, were improperly issued. But California is not alone in this. We've also identified 5 other states, and we expect those states to grow as our nationwide audit of those non-domiciled CDLs continue. But it was important that based on that and the lost confidence in that issuance process, that we needed to take immediate action. And that's why, moving forward, to obtain a non-domiciled CDL, one will have to provide an unexpired passport, 994 form, and that I-94 form must show one of 3 very specific employment-based visa categories, which is either an H-2A, H-2B, or an E-2 visa. And the number of individuals that will be eligible moving forward is much smaller than the current holders of non-domiciled CDLs today. In addition, we've announced a California or enforcement action on California, and that enforcement action discusses in great detail the details of each of the licenses and why that we found they were issued not in accordance with federal regulations. And that enforcement action gives California 30 days to respond to us. And the corrective action which we prescribed in that letter directs California to, one, they have to immediately pause the issuance of non-domiciled CDLs. So does every other state, I should add, based on the emergency rule. And they have to do a complete audit of there are about 62,000 non-domiciled CDLs that have been issued. And when every license that has been issued improperly has to be revoked and reissued in accordance with the new rule. And so California has 30 days to respond to us with their corrective action as prescribed in that letter. This is an economic credential. This authorizes someone to drive up to an 80,000-pound vehicle. But if there's a safety responsibility when someone has a CDL and operates a truck, as all of you know. And so if somebody doesn't meet that safety responsibility, then, or if they were issued a license in which they were not eligible to receive, states are responsible to take action on that. And the actions this morning really emphasize that.
My name's Randy. I'm from Kentucky. I'm an owner-operator. I've been driving a little over 35 years in the industry, and I got my own authority here about 3 years ago now. And going back to what you said, number one, I need to thank OIDA for all of their work on behalf of us to push this through. Thank all of you guys for what you do. We appreciate it. We're paying attention to it. And thank you guys for paying attention to what they're bringing to the table. This deal with the non-domiciled drivers is a major issue for us out there on the road. And it's not just beyond the accidents that they're causing, but the skill level that's out there is without other words, is beyond disgusting. And I think there's a lot of residual problems that we have in our industry right now that are based upon that. Nowhere to park your trucks because at 7 o'clock at night, the truck stops for full and you're parking in the driveways. I heard just a week ago a news report, I don't even remember where it was from, but from 2021 to 2024, there was 720,000 non-American drivers that were issued CDL in the United States here. That's 720,000 that were brought in here.
I tried to find the news Randy here was referencing and found several reports that are a bit different than the way Randy paints it. Rather than a rise in foreign truck drivers between 2021 and 2024, seems he's referencing a driver demographics related report that references a rise to 720,000 foreign-born truck drivers in the United States between the year 2000 and 2021, in fact. Many among them are sure to be legal permanent residents and thus eligible for standard CDLs, not the non-domiciled credential the new DOT move is targeting. Nonetheless, Randy's point was to ask about skill levels, training, and what can be done about the problem when the old driver shortage notion tends to be invoked anytime a trucking company hits a recruiting blip of any kind whatsoever.
I don't believe we have a driver shortage. I believe I have an influx of drivers that are unskilled and untrained, and that's really what's affecting it. So I guess my question would be is, number one, thank you for what happened this morning and what's moving forward with it. But if we've got whatever 200, 300,000, even 100,000 that are out there on the road currently right now that have these CDLs that are basically no good or they can't pass the test, what are we going to do to go back and get rid of them? In order to wash the tub, we got to kind of clean the scum off the outside of it first. So I just know that there's a lot of them already here operating out there right now still today, this morning. How are we going to go back and get that back going? Is there a way that we can trace all that back and find out who's out there right now?
So I appreciate the question. And so I'm going to take that a couple different ways. So for one, so we're doing an enforcement action against California, and which is prescribes that California must audit all of their non-domiciled CDLs that have been issued. and all of the ones that have been issued improperly. And based on FMCSA sample, in which our investigators went in for about 2 weeks, we have discovered that about 1 in 4, based on our sample, have been issued improperly. And so if California should go in, or must go in, and identify all licenses that were issued improperly. And if a license was issued improperly, it is their responsibility to revoke and reissue in accordance with the new rule. And that's just California. But we've identified at this time at least 5 other states that have also improperly issued non-domiciled CDLs. Some aren't as bad as California based on our initial determinations today, but that could change as the audits continue. So I don't want to get ahead of any action there. But any other states, the Secretary called on all governors of all states. And this was in his remarks this morning. To all governors should initiate a top to bottom audit of their non-domiciled CDL issuance and all licenses, all this non-domiciled CDLs that were improperly issued within that state should be revoked and reissued. And so, in some states, like California, that might be up to 1 in 4. So our numbers suggest that California has issued about 62,000 non-domiciled CDLs or CLPs. And so 1 in 4, there could be upwards of 15,000 licenses in which they're revoking and reissuing. And when I say reissuing, that means reissuance in accordance with the new final rule, which, and again, that final rule significantly limited the eligibility to obtain the non-domiciled CDL. I do want to make a point on your truck parking. It's a problem. It is. We know it's a problem. I mean, I don't have to tell all of you that it's a problem. And not only is it, it's not just an inconvenience; it's a safety issue as well. I know there was a crash. I can't remember the city a couple of years ago in which Greyhound bus driver was fatigued and veered off into the exit ramp. It hit drivers that were parked on the exit ramp because all the truck parking slots were full. There were no spots available for those truckers to go. They had to resort to parking on the ramp. And they, at that point, made them vulnerable to be involved in that crash. So it's a safety issue. And as part of the pro-trucker package in which the Secretary announced in June, so the previous administration liked to announce grants, but not get shovels and dirt and start building. And what the Secretary did is cleared backlog and started in getting grant agreements signed and so those truck parking expansion projects can be built. It's not going to fix it nationwide, just the action so far, but it's a step forward. And I'll be interested to see what Congress does on in the next Surface Transportation Reauthorization, whether they allocate money specifically for truck parking, knowing, again, from all of you, that it's such a big problem.
Yeah, and just so y'all know, call your lawmakers. There is a bill out there, Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, in the House that we're trying to get in the service. It's made it to the House floor twice. It's went out committee twice, made the House floor, and it's never gotten passed.
That's the voice of OOIDA Executive Vice President Louis Pugh, whose voice you last heard here from congressional testimony around the highway reauthorization he was talking about there.
Again, this is the time with the Highway Reauthorization Act to get that bill. So you need to be reaching out to your lawmakers because Congress has $755 million that you all paid for in your fuel tax, road tax, and the highway trust fund. So let's get that money for some parking. We got another questions?
Just a suggestion that change the law on using the freeways for commerce, for, commercial use. If we could change that, then we could build hundreds of miles or take advantage of the hundreds of miles of median that could be turned into parking plazas like you have on Illinois toll roads and service plazas like that, just up the road in Kansas. Beautiful parking plazas. The biggest problem with the parking, besides the money, is a place to put them where neighborhoods don't say, not here. But we have all these medians that we would just love to be able to pull off, take a rest, and then take off again. My question is, you're here looking at some of the most beautiful old trucks restored in the world. Now, there's been ideas floated around at FMCSA about requiring old trucks past, before 2000 model year to have ELDs. We are not the droids you're looking for. Now, FMCSA prides themselves in the Federal Highway Safety Administration, National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. They pride themselves on stats, on data before they make decisions. But there is no data showing that pre-2000 trucks with paper logs are any significant factor of truck accidents. So this is a solution without a problem. The vast majority of these older trucks pre-2000 are already inside the 150-mile radius for ELD exemption. The ones that do go over the road have been rebuilt at least once, probably twice, and you look at just some of the most gorgeous iron out here. I imagine you've got to find some way to retrofit that to an ELD, and it's absolutely not the problem. So keep that in mind when you hear that balloon floated around at FMCSA again, because it has come up once before.
So I'd love to.
Amen.
So we'd love to address that right now. So as part of the Secretary's approach record package that was announced at the end of June, he's made a commitment not to extend the ELD mandate to the pre-2000 trucks.
Somewhere when we're looking at hours of service and ELDs and some of these, some common sense ought to be out there that after a guy's driven a truck for, 10, 15 years, got 1.5 million miles, maybe he doesn't need quite the rigid standards that the people coming in the industry. He's probably proven himself. He knows when to rest, knows when to break.
So we'd love to touch on that a little bit, is on the hours of service specifically. So recently FMCSA put out notice and comment for 2 hours of service pilot studies. And we're going to attempt to recruit up to 256 people in each of these pilot studies. So one is a pause of the 14-hour clock, and the other is the split sleeper to examine the 5-6 and 6-4 and 5-5 split sleepers. And so what I believe is that if you give truckers flexibility in their schedule, that is going to make a safer, more well-rested trucker. But we have to have the data to show it. We can't make that change without data. And that's why we have to do these studies. That's why we are doing these pilot studies. And I encourage folks, when that becomes available, to sign up and be strong, good participants in that study. And I told our team, because we had seen this in other pilots, in terms of in other pilots, they had proposed a forward-facing camera. I told our team, don't even think about it. That is going to be a non-starter for folks that want to participate. And so there's not going to be a forward-facing camera requirement. We are going to have to obtain data, but it's not going to be transferred to FMCSA. There's a bright line there. It's not going to be used in enforcement action. And there's also, still working the details out on this, there may be minor compensation for those who participate in that study, because we want good data, those who are going to participate in those pilots for the entire duration. And so we can determine whether, as I think it will, hopefully it will, that providing that flexibility will ensure that we're not degrading safety on our roads.
And if anybody is interested in this, reach out to OID, our compliance department. Let them know who you are, and once the details come from them, we can get back in contact with you on how to sign up to be part of it.
Again, that was the voice of Louis Pugh, giving way then to another commenter with an idea for some sort of graduated system for random drug testing for owner-operators, particularly given the cost and time lost to hundreds of random tests over the years in his case, many others I'm sure, without a single positive, of course.
Well, I'm sure there's other people in here who have hundreds of drug tests behind them and never had a single hit on it. And the cost of the drug test operation to stop your truck, to go in, all the rules that go with that. And then you get in there, and then people don't even do any of their responsibility. You just walk in, do your thing, and walk out. They do the chain of custody, and that's it. That's one of the things that just drives me no end. We're jumping through these hoops, and these people that actually do the drug testing, it's just, they don't do it. A lot of times the water isn't turned off and stuff like that. To our advantage, if we're not doing, if we're doing drugs, there's some advantages. We're not. That's not the point. The point is there's got to be a better way for you guys to identify the bad actors. And personally, I think it has to do with the hiring of truck drivers and how they're screened to be hired. The owner-operators, that deal will take care of itself, because them boys that run drugs don't stay long.
Common sense is back on the table. That is, from the president to the secretary on down, common sense is our marching order. And the way I look at policy is I want to make it easier for our good actors to do their job. The government's burden is not around their neck, weighing them down. But I also want to make it harder for the bad actors to do their job and to skirt our regulations. And so that's a tough needle to thread, but that's kind of the framework in which I'm trying to look through, and we're trying to look through policy. And in terms of common sense and deregulation and good policy, this year, as in April, I think in the first half of the year, we announced 20 deregulatory actions, and some of these were low-hanging fruit. Oh yeah, some of these were. You look at it, you wonder, why is this regulation still on the books? Who is this? What is this? What is the point? What is the safety benefit of this regulation? And if someone can't answer that, maybe the regulation shouldn't be there. But we have already taken action on some of that low-hanging fruit, and we're going to be looking for more. And the department put out a request for comments for suggestions on deregulatory items. And I know already that if FMCSA or the department asks for opinions, and it is the trucking community is not shy about offering their opinions. Of the 1,200 or so comments that the department received, the trucking community, and this is across all modes, aviation, pipeline, rail, the trucking community was over 800 of those. So there's no shortage of ideas out there, and I hope that all of you avail yourself of that opportunity to submit those comments, because we're going through those, and the ones that make sense, we're gonna tier them into what makes sense and what may not make sense, and we're gonna take action. We want to take action because we want to bring common sense back.
You guys are looking at data for all this stuff, right? When are you going to look at the data for the ELDs? When the ELDs came into play, that's when we started having a lot more accidents. If we can go back to paper, a lot of us older hands out here would be a lot happier. Because when we start our clock now, we don't get to stop. You guys are talking about stopping the clock somewhere in there and stuff. And I get that. But the thing is it's the ELD's the problem for a lot of the stuff. Not only that, but the non-domiciled drivers are coming out of these driving schools, and they're popped up with all that stuff happening. They just took off like wildfire. There's always a new driving school, so why are we allowing the driving schools to issue CDLs?
Appreciate the question. Number one, so the ELD, that's a congressional mandate. FMCSA must follow the congressional mandates that are given to us. And so FMCSA unilaterally, if Congress were to repeal that requirement, tell us to repeal that requirement, we follow what Congress told us to do. But right now, there's a mandate from Congress on the ELDs, and so we have to follow that. However, we know there's also a problem with ELDs because the folks in this room are trying to do the right thing, and they have this ELD in which they're following. But there are a lot of folks out there who have these ELDs in which they are able to be manipulated, and we need to take them. We need to ensure that we're going to enhance the vetting process of ELDs to ensure that those would be less likely to be manipulated. So the bad actors are not able to scrape the system, while the good actors are being restrained by it. In addition, I want to touch on the schools that you discussed. We know that so just generally, it is important that we have qualified drivers behind the wheel of trucks. And so training is important, but that training should be consistent across the different schools. And right now, we have heard reports and have seen allegations that there are some schools that are not holding to the same standards as they should. And we want to take action on those. And what we've done this week is we've looked through all of the entry-level driver training providers that have not failed to file their biennial update, and we've sent them notices of proposed removal. And so that's a low-hanging fruit, but it's beginning to take action, and because it shows you that the ones that are not going to be compliant as doing something as simple as filing a biennial update. What other regulations or how else are they conducting themselves in a manner that may not be following what they should be doing? Because we need to have confidence that the truck drivers that are going out of the schools in which you're talking about are the same caliber going through the trucking schools that are doing the right thing.
My original question is about the non-domiciled CDLs, but just real quick on the trucking schools themselves. I was just curious why aren't they attached? Why aren't maybe it is a bond attached to them? So you have a trucking school which has to have a bond. In the future, if you find out that this particular trucking school is doing nefarious things, I'm just issuing CDLs to anybody. Well, that bond could assist with whatever is out there that needs to be assisted with. But my original question was about the non-domiciled CDLs. Maybe you have to help me here. I don't understand why they exist. Now, you have a Canadian driver that comes down. That individual has a CDL from Canada. Boom. So they have access. Same with the Mexican. If I come from Mars and I tell you that I want a non-domiciled, well, where am I going to live? Where am I going to be I'm going to be domiciled somewhere. And if I drop for a trucking company that says, oh, we just run him up and down the road, well, then maybe it should be mandated. If I don't have anywhere to live and I live in that company's truck, well, then my address should be that company's address. The non-domiciled CDL shouldn't even exist. We're trying to fix broken glass, by just putting another piece of glass up there. That's going to break too. In my opinion, we're trying to fix something that shouldn't even be there. So instead of spending all of this time trying to fix something that shouldn't be there, maybe it just shouldn't be there.
Appreciate the comments. So the non-domiciled CDL, as I understand it, its original purpose was if a state's CDL program were to be decertified, the residents of that particular state could go to a different state to obtain. That was the original intent. So to obtain a license, and because they didn't live in that state, they would need a non-domiciled CDL. That was the original intent, and it had been expanded, and we are now reining that back in. And so it will now, moving forward, only apply to just a handful of individuals that, so one, either are from a state that has been decertified, although no state has been decertified today. And then two, it'll be limited to those with employment-based visas, such as an H-2B, H-2A. So, and these are temporary seasonal workers or E-2s. And so the number of non-domiciled CDLs moving forward will be significantly lower than it is today. And then with regard to the training question, if we find out that they're not following regulations, it is our responsibility to take action against them. And we do that. So we have we have a training provider registry, and then we should be taking action against them to remove them from that training provider registry. And therefore, they should not be able to train folks moving forward.
Number one, thank you for showing up and listening to us. The ELD deal, I know you're in a bind on it. There's no perfect. The ELD was wrote for a perfect work. It's wrote for you to get up, 15-minute break, truck. It's not wrote for weather, traffic, breakdowns. We know all that. So why don't we simplify it? Why don't we just open it up? If you want us to work 14 hours a day, let a man work 14 hours a day, drive, do whatever. Because at the end of the day, it will equal out, or end of the week. If you're stuck in a shipper for 3 hours today, you got 3 hours to drive tomorrow. I mean, if you're going to be in a truck, and that's what people don't understand, if you're going to be in a truck and you can work, why not work? I mean, I understand where y'all at. We all know we can say it. ELD was here, so just simplify it. Dadgum, I got 3 or 4 different, things I can run on, this time, that time, 5 hour, this hour. It gets too complicated. But my question is, we haul oversize. And I think everybody in here pretty well keeps a nice truck, tries to keep the truck up. And I don't think that people really understand how the broker transparency has got to be for owner-operators, number one right now. We haul oversized stuff. I haul 100-foot, 120-foot material. Those prices 3 years ago, $15, $20 a mile, some of them. I mean, it varies, I know. And now you've got these people coming in here, not being racist, not being anything, that they're hauling it for $5, $6 a mile. And they're not doing it legal. But yeah, I feel like that the people doing it right, the DOT, and everybody looks at us all the time harder than they do those people. Those people, they blow the scale, their trucks are junk. But no, they don't have the loads tied down properly. And even where we go and load, you hear them say, well, we're glad to see y'all. I mean, we've got customers where we go, man, we're glad to see y'all. We don't have to translate off the phone. Y'all know how to load. I mean, I know that y'all have stipulated a lot of stuff, but I don't believe you're stipulating jumping on that problem as much as you need to be. I mean, that's kind of my question is, broker transparency has got to be something. And who you're giving that load to, qualification. I mean, I don't know how many of these gentlemen pulled oversized, but you don't just pull a 16 wide load down the road. You wonder why your bridges are getting hit. You wonder why you're having multiple wrecks. That's why.
So a couple things on the broker transparency. The most recent update we have on that is the unified agenda recently came out, and this is a list that provides all the regulatory updates and kind of a timeline. And FMCSA put forth that we're going to do another NPRM beginning in May of 26. And when that does come out, I know we had previously had an NPRM, and there was thousands of comments, and we appreciate all of those. And we encourage, based on if there are changes in the next NPRM, that you also use that opportunity to submit your comments and to us, because we'll be reading those and analyzing those in terms of and how we're going to move forward from that. But we recognize it's a problem, every time OIDA shows up to FMCSA and talks to us, they're mentioning it to us. And they're always in our ear about broker transparency. And we understand the frustration that you're feeling, as well as we also know that how long has the freight recession been going on?
There's a little bit of crosstalk here, but suffice it to say a long time was the answer. And the commenter got the mic back for a bit of an example.
The rates are just absolutely, okay, to give you an example. On the load board the other day, there was a load, 100-foot, 97-foot load going to Jacksonville, Florida, out of IU. That load paid. They had it on the board for $4,000. If you're working with a company, and I'm just going to quick round figure, nothing in stone. If you go through a broker, our company's going to get 20%, which I understand that. We're with Eastern Express. So, right now you get you take 4 off, quick round what? That's 36. And to do that load legal, you got to have an escort all the way down. A dadgum escort is making about as much as we are. They're making $1.50 to $2 a mile. So that's right at $1,500. And then you take fuel off, you moved a 97-foot load for basically $1,500, $2,000, less than $2,000. If you go through a broker, that load every day, and it's probably, we know because, we know the background and the backstory of what that paid. That load is a $6,500 load started out. You quick round figure, we run about, anything, what the way our company tries to bid is 75 up, X amount. So we know what it pays. We're not stupid. And then you're trying to get that load moved for that. You're not getting it moved legally.
So the Secretary was asked today in the press conference whether the department's actions with the final rule on the non-domiciled CDLs is going to impact the trucking market, and whether that would cause a shortage and the Secretary responded and said he was not concerned because there's an American truck driver that will be able to take that load.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name's Tom Love. I'm from Pennsylvania. I've been trucking for a little over 30 years. I'm a company driver, but that's here or there. OIDA is here for all of us, advocating for safety and common sense rules, guides for us. There's a lot to unpack here. Thank you for listening to us. Getting to the non-domiciled CDLs and the states that are issuing the licenses, the third-party testing facilities. In the state of Pennsylvania, you can take your general knowledge test on your computer in one of over 30 different languages. Then you go to a third-party testing facility for your road skills test and everything else. So, can we trust these third-party sites that are testing? Okay, because it's a basically pay for play to get your license. There should be standards. These third-party testing sites should be held accountable. It's no different than your medical card for, the doctors have to be on a national registry. They have to comply with all the rules and ins and outs to be, to issue our medical card. So that should be looked at also. So I don't trust all the individual states. Now, I applaud what Secretary Duffy has done this morning for this issue. Going forward, I hope there can be more oversight on that for the individual states. Audit, FMCSA being able to audit the states in general with that. That's one. Two, getting back to the foreign drivers here, non-domicile CDLs, and there's a lot falling through with the ELDs. These drivers here work for unscrupulous companies, anywhere from a couple to a dozen to 50 trucks. There's no when ELDs first came out, there was no standard set in the industry. they were self-certified. So they were all self-certified ELDs. So they are able to be manipulated from anywhere, anyone that has a computer. It goes on a daily basis. I'm fully aware of certain companies that actually do that. I want to call them out right now on that. But it goes on every day out here. That happens. That's severely unsafe for our industry. These drivers, some of them are being pushed. They are brought into this country. They're just like indentured servants, you know. They're here. They're brought over. They're promised this. They're promised that. These companies bring them in there. They 1099 them. They, okay, you're going to do this. You're going to get your authority. Do you realize how many DOT numbers we have now and how many are actually registered? And you'll see them. Trust me, when you ride up and down the interstate, you look at the side, you look at the doors, you'll see that the numbers on and off. You'll see all the glue marks on the doors. Okay, and they do that before an annual occurrence. So when the audit comes up, when they pull an audit on them, okay, they get something on there. Next thing you know, they're reapplying for a new DOT number. I've seen them change it at the truck stops. I've seen it off and on. It's just severely unsafe. I've witnessed it. Everybody in this room has witnessed it firsthand. There's one big company that starts with an A, okay, and then you'll see them. They're one of the major over the phone, internet, in the country. And these mega carriers and mega fleets are just reaping the benefits, and the roadways are completely unsafe. But they wash their hands of this every day because they're like, well, they're a contractor. They're 1099 or they're their own company. So, and it's a constant. So there needs to be some way, somehow, there can be more auditing of carriers. I mean, they get a PO box. There was multiple occurrences. There was one in Texas, one in California, where there's like 700 DOT numbers to one address, and that's a post office box. It's a mailing address. You need to have a place where your company is registered, a physical, they live in their trucks and they just skate around everything here. I'm just throwing out what's there, what we see every day. I know I'm kind of hitting you with a lot of stuff, but it's every day, and it's just totally unsafe. So my family, your family, the main thing, I'm a company driver, but safety is my main point. But also, it's cutting driver rates, okay? Not only for the owner-operators, it's cutting the rates for company drivers too. Because there are some things that our company hauls, but if they can get company B to pull it for, $1 less a mile, guess who they're going with? I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to be quiet now and maybe let you respond.
So I know that was a bit of a laundry list, and thank you for all those comments. It was a lot, and you highlighted a ton of issues that most of which we've heard, but it's so important to continue to reiterate it and underscore and italicize and bold those concerns and continue to say them and continue to make others aware of them. And the one I want to particularly highlight is the skills test. So very recently, the Department of Transportation Office of Inspector General announced an audit of FMCSA's oversight of the skills test. So this was public, but those are going to be assets to go in and find out where FMCSA is coming up short in terms of our oversight on the skills test and make some recommendations or take action to ensure that we are ensuring that we are exercising proper oversight over those skills testing, because we know it's a problem. Just for an example, we kept getting asked, why do we need to do this English language proficiency? Isn't there already a requirement in the skills test to it be conducted in English? It's pretty clear to us that requirement somewhere at some time is not being followed, because based on the violations in which we've seen since the English language proficiency went into the out of service criteria in the end of June, over 5,000 drivers have been placed out of service for it. A lot of those most of those drivers went through a skills test. Where's the disconnect? And that's why we need to ensure that there's enhanced oversight of that skills test. And if there's an opportunity for FMCSA to get more involved or to exercise that oversight, that's why we are welcoming the DOT OIG's audit into our oversight and real skills tests. But your comment is well heard, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Hampton was referencing a then very recent piece of news that may have flown a bit under the radar of readers as of yet. Overdrive's Matt Cole had the basics of it the day before this session at GBATS, in fact. I'll post a link to it in the show notes and in the post that houses this podcast for Monday, October 6, 2025, along with Cole's coverage of the session from the event published last week. Find it all via overdriveonline.com/overdrive-radio. And here's a big thanks to Mr. Cole for being there, likewise all the owner-operators who commented in session, and to you for listening, wherever you get Overdrive Radio. It's on Spotify and SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts and YouTube, Overdrive's Facebook page, and any listening platform, really. Leave us a review there if you're enjoying these, and here's a big thanks in advance for that. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. Edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the acoustic guitar and other support of trucker-songwriter Long Haul Paul Marhofer. The theme is Legend of the Snake Man by Marhofer, featuring the guitar work of Travis, the Snake Man himself, Whammick, Terry Two Socks Richardson on bass, keys by Tishomingo Jim Whitehead, and on drums, Andrew Marshall. The podcast is backed up further by Overdrive's own social media coordinator, Jasmine Campbell, senior editor, Matt Cole, executive editor, Alex Lockie, and video editors, Lawson Rudisell and Andrew Glenn. I'll see you next time.